The first time I saw her, she looked like death wearing armor. The docking bay of Outpost K-47 smelled like burnt fuel, coolant, and metal dust. Ships came and went constantly, freighters, patrol craft, mercenary vessels. It was the kind of place where no one asked questions because everyone had something they didn't want asked about. I worked in the repair sector. Not glamorous work. Mostly hull patches, thruster recalibration, and armor repairs for ships that had seen too many battles. That day started like any other, until she walked in. The entire bay seemed to go quiet when the alien warrior stepped through the airlock doors. She was tall, easily a head taller than me, and wrapped in dark battle armor that looked like it had been through a small war. The plating was cracked in places, scorched in others, and one shoulder section was hanging loose. Her species was unmistakable. A Karath. The Karath were legends across half the galaxy. Elite warriors. Ruthless tacticians. Their empire had conquered entire star systems before humanity had even developed warp travel. And standing in front of my repair station was one of them. Her skin had a faint violet tone, and thin glowing lines traced across her temples like living circuitry. Long silver hair hung behind her shoulders, partially braided with metal rings. But what caught my attention most was the look in her eyes. Exhaustion. Real, bone-deep exhaustion. She stopped in front of my workbench. "You repair armor," she said. Her voice was low and controlled, but there was strain beneath it. "Sometimes," I replied carefully. Working in a neutral station meant dealing with all kinds of people, but Karath warriors weren't exactly common customers. She turned slightly, exposing the damaged shoulder plate. "Fix it." I crouched down to inspect the armor. Up close, the damage was worse than it looked. The internal magnetic locking system had been shattered, and several energy distribution filaments were burned out. "This isn't a quick patch job," I said. "Then take longer." I glanced up at her. She wasn't threatening me. She was just tired. "Sit," I said, pointing to a nearby repair stool. For a moment she didn't move, like the idea itself confused her. Then slowly, she lowered herself onto the stool. I pulled out my tools and started working. The armor was incredibly advanced, far beyond most human military gear. Repairing it meant carefully opening the shoulder plate and exposing the delicate energy circuits underneath. Several minutes passed in silence. Then she spoke again. "You are human. Last time I checked. You are not afraid." I shrugged. "Should I be?" Her eyes studied me. "Most beings are." I tightened a filament connector and ran a diagnostic pulse through the armor. "Well," I said, "most beings probably haven't spent the last 8 years fixing broken machines. After a while, you stop worrying about who's wearing them." She didn't respond, but I noticed something strange. Her breathing had slowed, almost like she was relaxing. That surprised me. Karath warriors were known for many things. Relaxation wasn't one of them. After about 20 minutes, I removed the damaged shoulder plate completely. Beneath it, the inner armor lining was scratched and burned. "You were in a serious fight," I said. "Yes." "That obvious?" She didn't answer. Instead, her gaze drifted across the busy repair bay. Freighter crews argued over cargo manifests. Mechanics shouted across tool racks. Welding sparks lit the air like tiny stars. Life went on. Normal. Peaceful. For the first time since she arrived, the alien warrior seemed uncertain. "Humans live like this often?" she asked. "Like what?" "Without war." I let out a short laugh. "Trust me, we've had plenty of war." She considered that. "But not today." "No," I said. "Not today." She went quiet again. I kept working. The repair required replacing several microcapacitors and rerouting the energy flow through the armor's shield nodes. It was delicate work, but eventually I managed to stabilize the system. When I lifted the replacement plate into position, my fingers brushed briefly against the edge of the armor near her collarbone. She flinched, not violently, just a small, sudden movement. "Sorry," I said quickly. But she didn't respond. Instead, she stared down at the armor, at my hands, at the careful way I was aligning the plating. Minutes passed. Then finally, she spoke again. Her voice was softer this time. "Why do you care about me?" I blinked. "What?" "You repair the armor carefully. You check the internal damage. You apologize when touching me." She looked directly at me now. "Why?" The question caught me completely off guard. "Because it's my job?" That is not the answer. I leaned back from the armor and sighed. "You want the honest answer?" "Yes." I wiped grease from my hands and met her gaze. "Because you look like someone who's had a really bad day." She frowned slightly. "That is irrelevant. Maybe to you." I tapped the cracked edge of her armor. "But you walked in here barely holding your equipment together. You're exhausted, and I'm guessing whatever battle you came from didn't end well." Her expression didn't change, but her silence told me enough. "So, yeah," I said. "I care because fixing your armor properly might help you survive the next fight." She stared at me, long, unmoving, like she was trying to understand something completely foreign. Finally, she whispered something under her breath in a language I didn't understand. Then she asked another question. "Humans care for strangers often?" "Sometimes." "Why?" I shrugged again. "Because someone should." I finished the repair about 15 minutes later. The shoulder plate sealed smoothly with a soft magnetic click, and the armor's energy lines pulsed to life in a faint blue glow. "Try moving your arm," I said. She stood up slowly. Her armor shifted as she rotated the shoulder joint. Perfect movement. No grinding. No resistance. She looked down at the repaired plate. "It is improved. That's what I aim for." She studied me again. "You did more than repair it." "Well, yeah. I reinforced the capacitor loop. The original design had a weak point." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "You altered Kareth battle armor?" "Relax," I said. "It'll work better now." For a moment I thought she might get angry. Instead, something unexpected happened. She smiled. Just barely. But it was the first real emotion I'd seen from her. "My name is Thekara," she said. I nodded. "Nice to meet you. I'm Daniel." She repeated the name quietly. "Daniel." Like she was testing the sound of it. Then the station alarms began screaming. The sudden wail of emergency sirens echoed through the docking bay. Everyone froze. Then the intercom shouted, "Hostile ships detected. All personnel seek shelter." My stomach dropped. Pirates. Or worse. Through the large docking bay window, I saw them. 3 black warships dropping out of warp directly above the station. Thekara's eyes narrowed instantly. "That is not piracy," she said. "What do you mean?" Her gaze hardened. "They are hunting me." Before I could respond, the first explosion rocked the station. The docking bay lights flickered violently. People began running. Cargo containers crashed to the floor. And outside, one of the hostile ships fired again. The station's defense cannons roared in response. Thekara turned toward the exit. "They will board soon." "You sound very sure about that." "I am." She looked back at me. "Daniel." "Yes. Stay hidden." Then she started walking away, right toward the docking bay doors. "Wait," I said. She stopped. I hesitated. "Your armor might be repaired," I said slowly, "but the energy shield regulator is still unstable." She turned. "That system was not damaged." "Yeah, but I rerouted power through the shoulder grid. If you activate full shields, it'll overload in about 5 minutes. She stared at me, then sighed. You are telling me my armor will fail in battle. Eventually, a distant explosion shook the station again. Her eyes narrowed. Then she did something completely unexpected. She stepped closer to me. Very close. Close enough that I could see faint scars across her violet skin. You repaired my armor, she said quietly. You spoke to me without fear. Her glowing eyes locked onto mine. Now you warn me of danger. I swallowed. Yeah. She studied me for another long moment. Then she reached up and placed her hand gently on my shoulder. The touch was surprisingly warm. Kareth warriors do not forget debts, she said. Then she turned and walked toward the docking bay doors. A moment later they slammed open. Armed boarding troops flooded inside. And the alien warrior I had just repaired armor for stepped forward to meet them. What happened next was something I would never forget. The Kara moved like a storm. Her armor glowed as energy blades ignited along her forearms. The first 2 soldiers never even fired. She cut through them with terrifying precision. Blaster bolts filled the air. Metal screamed. People ran in every direction. But the Kara stood alone in the center of the bay, facing an entire squad of enemy warriors. And somehow, they were the ones afraid. 5 minutes later the floor was covered with broken weapons and unconscious attackers. The surviving enemy troops retreated back toward their ship. The Kara stood in the center of the chaos, breathing hard. Her armor flickered. I noticed immediately. The shield regulator. Overloading. The Kara. I shouted. She looked at me. Then at the glowing armor lines across her chest. She understood instantly. Without hesitation, she sprinted back toward my repair station. Deactivate shields. I yelled. I cannot, she said. The system is locked in combat mode. Of course it was. I grabbed a diagnostic cable. Hold still. She stood there while I opened the emergency port beneath the shoulder plate I'd just repaired. The energy inside the armor hummed dangerously. You're about 10 seconds away from a meltdown, I said. That sounds unpleasant. Yeah. My hands moved quickly across the control interface. 5 seconds. 4. 3. The armor suddenly powered down with a sharp crack of released energy. Silence. Then the Kara slowly exhaled. The station alarms faded. The hostile ships began retreating. And for the first time since the battle started, everything was quiet. She looked down at me. You saved my life. I shrugged. Just fixing armor. She was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the same question again. But this time her voice was softer. More human. Daniel, why do you care about me? I thought about it. Then I smiled. Because someone should. She studied me for a long time. Then something changed in her expression. Not confusion. Not exhaustion. Something warmer. Then perhaps, she said slowly, I will stay here a little longer. And, for the first time since meeting her, the most feared warrior in the sector looked like she might finally be at peace.